Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Last Thursday, our government unveiled the draft Phase 2 plan of Restoring Safe Services Together, Manitoba's Pandemic Economic Recovery Roadmap. So far, more than 4,500 Manitobans have answered the survey questions at engagemb.ca. And there's still time for you to participate if you'd like. Tonight at 7 p.m., Minister Friesen, Dr. Roosen, others will be hosting a telephone town hall to discuss the proposal for Phase 2 as well. So if you'd like to receive a call this evening to participate in that town hall, you can register online through Engage MB. Our plan is to move forward with Phase 2 and ease some of the additional restrictions and continue to gradually and safely reopen our economy, but that will continue to be up to Manitobans to ensure that our COVID curve remains flat. And I say thank you again to all Manitobans who have so wonderfully supported each other and themselves and done the right things through this pandemic period. As a government, we have relied on our healthcare experts, and we'll continue to rely on our healthcare experts to determine the next steps of our plans. I want to provide some updates today, if I can, on initiatives that we've taken to assist Manitobans in this unprecedented time. Our Manitoba GAP program is providing small businesses with a bridge to a stronger and better future as they work to reopen safely. And I'm proud to share with you today that more than 4,000 Manitoba small businesses are receiving their $6,000 of GAP funding. That is one of the most generous support programs in Canada. Over $24 million has already been paid out to small businesses as they look to reopen on the road to recovery. We have promoted this program as well. Our call service has spoken with over 80,000 businesses, not-for-profits, charities, community groups, through the Manitoba Economic Support Call Centre to let them know about the GAP program and other assistance that's available to them. We're doing everything we can to make sure that you are supported during these challenging times. Let's talk about students for a second. Your Manitoba government is supporting high school and post-secondary students in finding employment in the private and non-profit sectors. And so far, under our Summer Student Job Recovery Program, we've identified more than 700 employers and nearly 1,700 positions for young Manitobans. And we're really promoting this program. I'll have more to say on this in the not-too-distant future. So far, this represents more than $8.4 million in provincial assistance, and we are excited and ready to do more. Today, I am going to be and I'm proud to do this, to join Premier Horgan, Premier Silver, as the three of us show our support for a national paid sick leave program. We are pleased, Premier Horgan and I have raised this on the calls with the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, and we're pleased that the federal government has now responded. The Prime Minister said yesterday that they would be willing to dialogue with the Premiers further on a sick leave program. Now, why do we need this? We already have a sick leave program for frontline healthcare workers. Well, we believe that we need a program that protects people, that protects businesses, and that protects us against a COVID comeback. And the greatest risk, many experts have said in other jurisdictions, is people returning to work too soon, staying at work when they're afraid to lose the paycheck when they have symptoms. We can't have that here in Manitoba. We don't need this in Canada, and we need a national government to lead in coordinating this so that we are able to provide the necessary supports to people who wish to do the right thing and stay home when they're sick, regardless of where they work, public sector, private sector. We don't want people returning to work sick and giving COVID a chance to make a comeback, as it has in so many other jurisdictions. A national paid sick leave program would ensure that people can stay home from work when they're sick without fear of not being able to make payments and pay their bills. And I think also will do a lot to help restore the confidence of consumers that when they go into a retail establishment, a store, or a service facility of some kind, that they're going to be safe and protected. And let's not forget about the colleagues and coworkers who could be affected by a transmission in the instance where someone goes back to work with symptoms. We've already seen this in one instance in Manitoba in recent days. Safety is the key, and avoiding a comeback is critical. So stay home when you're sick, and we hope that we can get the support in the not-too-distant future of the federal government to make sure that you're not suffering financially when you do stay home and do the right thing. We'll continue to work with the PM, and we'll work with other provinces and territories to move forward and ensure that all Canadians have the protections they need during this pandemic. We're working together as a team. Manitobans are showing the country what we can do when we put our minds to it, and I'm proud as your Premier to say thank you to you for doing the right things. Our number one priority during this pandemic has been keeping you and your loved ones safe and ensuring that we have a healthy Manitoba, not just today, but as we move forward to battle the next pandemic or flood or fire that comes our way by being resilient and strong. The COVID-19 pandemic has created difficulty for virtually all Manitobans. And especially, I would say this is true for the most vulnerable among us. We've endeavored to introduce programs and supports that will assist our most vulnerable, and today I'm proud to announce another one of those programs. Manitobans living with disabilities may be facing additional costs in adjusting to the realities of daily life during this public health emergency, and for many of them it is extremely difficult to cover additional costs. Today we're announcing $4.6 million in immediate and direct support to low-income Manitobans living with disabilities in order to lessen their financial burden caused by COVID-19. Les Manitobains handicapés peuvent devoir faire face à des coûts supplémentaires pour s'adapter aux réalités de la vie quotidienne pendant cette urgence de santé publique. Pour beaucoup d'entre eux, il est difficile de couvrir ces coûts. Aujourd'hui, nous annonçons 4,6 millions de dollars en soutien immédiat et direct aux Manitobains handicapés à faible revenu afin d'alléger le fardeau financier causé par COVID-19. As Manitobans respond to this pandemic together, our government's making this important investment to help address what we consider to be an urgent priority need that Manitobans will want us to address. We're providing this support through the new Disability Economic Support Program as part of the expanded Manitoba Protection Plan, a coordinated government response to challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. More than 23,000 Manitobans need to rely on monthly benefits under the disability category of employment and income assistance. Under the Disability Economic Support Program, each of these Manitobans will receive a $200 check in one-time support in the mail in early June. This payment will not be considered taxable income. It will not affect any other benefits that lower-income Manitobans depend upon. This financial support will provide recipients with some of the additional help they need during this very challenging time, and it will arrive quickly. The expanded protection plan for COVID-19 pandemic also includes the recently announced Seniors Economic Recovery Credit, and this new support for low-income people living with disabilities will put $4.6 million more into the hands of these vulnerable Manitobans right away. Manitobans living with disabilities and on lower incomes need assistance in these difficult times, and with the Disability Economic Support Program, we're going to do our best to make it just a little bit easier for them. All Manitobans are working together to get through this pandemic, and I want to again encourage everyone to stay positive, assist one another however you can. Your security and protection is the motivation for everything we're doing, and I remind you again to keep doing the right things. Stick to the fundamentals. Not every Canadian is given the opportunity to save a life, but you do have that opportunity, and you have saved lives, and will save even more Together we'll beat this thing. Thank you. I look forward to taking your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. A reminder to our reporters on the line, you will have one preliminary question and one follow-up question. Up first this morning, from the Winnipeg Free Press, Larry.
Premier Larry Cush of the Winnipeg Free Press. First, on the joint statements from the premiers, who do you see paying for this national sick leave program? Would it be federal, provincial, and business, federal only? How would this be paid for?
Well, Larry, we know that ultimately the taxpayer pays for everything, don't we? So the reality would be, I guess, that the taxpayers of Canada would be sponsoring any program of relief. I think the dialogue with the federal government will tell us about the specific designs going forward. But I would say this, if we allow COVID to make a comeback in this country, we'll all be paying a lot more. And the reality is we want to keep COVID from doing exactly that. And that means making sure that we encourage people to do the right things and stay home when they have symptoms, not go back to work because they're struggling to get by or because they need a paycheck, but do the right thing to protect their health and the health and well-being of others.
I've got a question on another topic. We haven't seen the cabinet orders yet for the appointment of David McLaughlin as the chief clerk of the Executive Council. Did you announce his appointment before cabinet approved the appointment?
No, I'm surprised you wouldn't have seen those, Larry. I expect they're on the way.
From Global, Brittany.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Brittany from Global News. I know we're getting more details later on when it comes to Phase 2 reopening, but I'm wondering, based on the comments that you've already received and then the town hall tonight, is it possible that we could see a phased-in approach or a staggered date to start for some of these businesses?
Brittany, we've got a lot of really good viewpoints from Manitobans, and I want to say thank you to those who took the time to respond with suggestions. We've been perusing those. Also, we had very fruitful interactions last week and again this morning with over 50 different organizations, I'll call them, business, trade, tourism, and the like, on suggestions and details that they would like to see addressed. We'll be incorporating that advice as best we can into the Phase 2 plan and releasing that in the not-too-distant future.
Thank you. And my second question is on the essential top-up. When are we going to see who's getting that and how it's being rolled out, along with the same for that 2.2% workforce reduction? Right.
So I think you're referring to the top up on the what some call hero pay or some call risk pay. We've had, I believe, 2 discussions already with representative leaders from both unionized and non-unionized frontline workers. I believe there is another discussion today, if I'm not mistaken, as well. What we're gleaning from those discussions is that this is going to be a challenge, but we'll face that challenge together and we'll come up with, though never and shouldn't be expected that there would be unanimity, but hopefully a significant majority or a plurality of points of view will be represented when we come up with a compensation plan to distribute those funds to our frontline workers here in Manitoba and reward them for their contributions and thank them.
From the Brandon Sun, Drew.
Thank you. It's Drew Mason of Brandon Sun here. Mr. Premier, on the draft plan of the Phase 2 reopening, what kind of feedback have you gotten so far on it?
Wow, Drew, all over the map. When you get thousands of responses, it's hard to categorize. I'd say naturally, some people think we're going too fast. Some people think we're going too slow. I think it highlights a lot of the reaction is, I think, really understandable. COVID's been in the news, let's face it, every day for months. And I think it highlights the importance of doing it properly and safely so that we can build sustainable recovery, so we can build confidence, so people will feel confident. The recovery plan only works if people feel confident and are willing to get back to some semblance of normal life in terms of their habits and their behaviors. We have to balance that with the need for ongoing restrictions. Dr. Roussin has given us good advice on this, and although we've expanded somewhat in terms of things like group size, there are still some real limits there that will continue for a time at least. Balancing all these factors isn't easy. I think Manitobans have shown that we can trust them to do the right things, and I think Manitobans have earned the right to say that we're a little bit ahead of some other provinces in terms of that progress that we've been making.
Thank you. And when will the plan be finalized?
Well, in the not too distant future. I should mention, just by way of contrast, and by way of thanks, I think, respectfully to the people of Manitoba for the way they have behaved throughout this process in the vast, vast, vast majority, very respectfully of one another and very cognizant of the importance to each other of doing the right things. We've had a total number of cases in our province that is lower than the new cases in Ontario just yesterday, just to put things in perspective.
From CJOB, Diana.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Diana from 680 CJOB. Just to clarify, is this a sick-time program strictly for the pandemic, or is this something that would become permanent, or do you feel it should become permanent?
No, we're proposing this for this pandemic and to respond to it. And we think it's important that because we know what's happened in other jurisdictions, that we take steps to make sure we're not doing anything that would encourage people to go back to work too soon or to go back and stay at work when they have symptoms. And so a national program of some kind that would give that assurance to people, I think would really help not just the private sector to get people more confident that they would go back and go to a shop, for example, but also people who work in the public sector so that they would feel confident coming back to work. Remember that we have a significant number of public sector workers who are not working in the normal work environment at this point in time and would be reluctant to come back to work with a health fear. So addressing this, I think, is a very important aspect of creating that greater confidence that we all want to feel.
Okay, and then just as a follow-up on a bit of a different topic, obviously Manitobans are starting to plan their summers and want to do so safely and locally given those travel restrictions. What can we count on from your government as far as new facilities, amenities, or upgrades to pass in parks and whatnot in tourist destinations that they'll be able to use in the weeks and months ahead? I know obviously you've announced funding under the Building Sustainable Communities grant program, but that list of projects hasn't been made public yet. What will we be seeing for infrastructure in areas that are more popular tourist attractions?
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic. Obviously, I'm one of many Manitobans who loves the outdoors and loves to get out into our beautiful outdoors here in Manitoba. And I note and compliment our tourism people for really going after promoting and encouraging tourism within Manitoba so that Manitobans get that heartfelt experience of being in our beautiful province. That being said, the new projects that were just announced in global form last week, I believe that most of those recipients are being notified, and then after they're notified, we'll be able to make the more detailed list public of all those projects. And we're looking at a number of other things as well. There are a number of green projects, for example, that I think would be relevant to your suggestion about helping people to enjoy in a sustainable way our outdoors in our beautiful green province.
From the Winnipeg Sun, Scott.
Hello, Premier. Scott Billick here from Winnipeg Sun. How does the province come to this $200 thing? You've done it with seniors now, and now with another 23,000 or over 23,000 Manitobans living with disabilities. How does the $200 number? How do you arrive at that number?
Well, Scott, I can't say it's anything but a guess as to impact, and I think that's an honest answer. Everybody's different. We have some folks with extreme mobility challenges, for example, that have not got the ability, without danger and risk to them, to get out and do their shopping. They've had to pay for services, delivery, not just pharmaceutical prescriptions, but groceries themselves. Got other people who are visually impaired, that they've had challenges. On the motion impaired thing, you've got cleaning, sterilization costs, cleaning for your wheelchair or a walker, in some cases a cane, that are additional costs that you might not have had pre-pandemic. There's a raft of them, and so what we're trying to do here, obviously, going and doing the analysis 20,000 times is going to do nothing but delay the ability to get some money in the hands of folks who are already vulnerable, and were vulnerable before this pandemic. So we're trying to arrive at something that's reasonable and fair, but I'm not going to pretend that it's the right amount for anyone or for everyone, any more than $200 for seniors is the right amount for everyone. We had some seniors say they didn't need it. They're donating to charity. Good for them. Good on them for that. We also know that many seniors appreciated the $200 and needed it. And so we're trying to address the vulnerabilities that we think are there in the best way we can, expeditiously and fairly.
Okay, and then my follow-up is just on the sick leave program being for the pandemic only. When would it be possible to consider this as a kind of a permanent thing because of just the ongoing threat of any sort of virus and how it kind of can affect a workplace? And what would be the downfall of having 10 paid sick days each year?
Well, I'm not interested in using the pandemic to try to create a fundamental change in the national social fabric. What I'm trying to do here is make sure we don't have a COVID comeback. And I know Premier Horgan has supported this recommendation. Sandy Silver, Premier up in Yukon, has implemented a program to assist people and encouraging them to not go back to work because they're struggling to meet their bills and would struggle more if they didn't have a paycheck, but instead cover that need off for a short period of time. I want to confine the discussion to this pandemic at this point in time. We have lots of time for other post-pandemic evaluations and studies, I'm sure.
From CBC Radio Canada, Patrick.
Bonjour, Monsieur Pallister. Patrick Foucault from Radio Canada. Thank you for providing a statement in French earlier on the support for Manitobans with disabilities. Would you be able to comment in French on your announcement on the paid sick leave program, please?
Je suis désolé, Patrick. Je suis désolé pour mon débutant français. Je n'ai pas un vocabulaire suffisamment pour s'adresser le sujet.
Aucun problème. Merci quand même. And on another topic then, so regarding restaurants and patios, some say it should be mandatory for waiters and waitresses to wear a mask at work. Do you share that point of view and believe it should be mandatory for these workers?
Well, I think that Dr. Roussen's advice has been preeminent in our decision-making at this point in time. I would just suggest you ask Dr. Roussen for his advice on this, as I do on an ongoing basis. He'll be available to you in about an hour and a half, I understand.
From CBC Manitoba, Bart.
Hey, Mr. Premier, how come there's an income tax for the $200 check for the people with disabilities, but there was no income tax for the seniors getting the $200 check?
Sorry, Bartley, I missed half of that. Do you mind just repeating your question for me?
Not at all. How come there is an income test for the $200 checks for people with disabilities, but there was no income tax for the people who are seniors getting $200 checks?
We're offering this support to those who are already in receipt of income support because we believe that they are, by definition, more vulnerable. We don't have commensurate data on seniors so that were we to apply an income test in hindsight to a senior's benefit payment, it might take weeks, months, in fact, to design and then to get out to them. And so this is why we have taken the approach we have of getting the money out to assist those who we consider to be, although not exclusively vulnerable, but somewhat vulnerable, most certainly with seniors, by far the most likely to suffer psychological or fear-related ailments as a consequence of a pandemic. They are the group of far highest risk to get and to die from COVID. And in the case of vulnerable Manitobans who are in receipt of payments due to their disabilities, I think that would be self-explanatory.
Thank you very much for that. Just a question here. Gyms, schools, divisions, they keep telling people that they're coming back on June 1st. And I know that draft plan hasn't decided that. They probably saw an earlier draft. Could you offer, to avoid situations where people could get dinged for illegally reopening because they were confused by last week, can you please offer some clear indication to these entities that, no, they're not reopening on June 1st?
I'll offer clarity on that subject in the not-too-distant future. I think there's been every attempt by the education minister and myself, including at, through virtual meetings, which can have their benefits but have their drawbacks too, I suppose. There is a greater possibility, I think, sometimes of confusion with a virtual meeting. But that being said, I know that we've tried to communicate very clearly. A draft plan was released last week. We've communicated very clearly that we're interested in getting input, and we have been getting input from many, including many teachers and educators and administrators in the education system who understand full well that it's a draft plan. So I guess I'd have to ask those who are confused to talk with their colleagues. They get straightened out pretty quickly on the fact that it's a draft plan.
From the Canadian Press, Steve.
Steve Lambert from the Canadian Press. Premier, will you be sending out a letter with these checks as well, and will it be signed by you?
Who else would sign it? I think those who are receiving the payment deserve it, and I think that the Premier of the province owes it to let people know that he believes that.
And how do you respond to accusations that this politicizes a government program, even if it is a one-term program, and why are the checks not signed by, say, someone apolitical, like a deputy minister of finance or families?
Well, I'd just say this to you, Steve. If it was about politics, why are we doing it right after an election? It'd be smarter to do it just before, like some others have done. I suppose if it was about politics, about supporting vulnerable people, and we're doing the right thing, and I'll continue to do the right thing, not the easy thing. It'd be easy to suggest that other governments that are cutting out checks when over half our governments are on the eve of elections, we're doing it for political reasons. But I don't think that's fair, and I don't think it's right when that reference is made to other provinces or the federal government. And I backed them when they've offered support payments. So when we do it here right after winning a significant majority election, I would say it's a pretty weak case to say we're doing it for politics when the next election is years away.
From CTV Winnipeg, Jeff.
Mr. Premier, Jeff from CTV. I know you've been asked this sort of a couple times, but I want to go back to it. Whether it's a phased-in approach or not, can you announce the start date for Phase 2? Do you have that? Is that known?
Well, I'll talk to you about it in the near future, Jeff.
Okay, thank you. And if I could just ask about the national program that you talked with Premier Horgan and Silver about. Is Manitoba, other provinces willing to put in money to this?
Yeah, we're willing to. We're also cognizant that for this program to work in a country like ours, it needs to be national in scope. We've got lots of people in Manitoba that understand, and work in other jurisdictions too, but lots of people understand that mobility has to come back for our economy to work well, and we can't see the thickening of interprovincial borders For us to start to loosen the restrictions for travel in this country, we're going to have better testing, and we're working on that. Every province is. We're working very hard on that. Better tracking, and here's where the federal government can come in and help us. And also, we need programs that make sure that people don't travel when they're sick and that people don't go back to work when they're showing symptoms. To have these programs nationally will really help our economy to get back on track, really help us to get the jobs back that people need and want, and help us recover. And most importantly, it's the best defense I think we can offer against a COVID comeback in this country. We don't need to discourage people from staying home when they're sick. We need to encourage them to do that because that's the right thing to do. And during this pandemic, it's critical that we do everything we can to help people do the right thing. This program will help people do the right thing.
From City News, Jonas.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Jonas Gilbart, City News. Just following up on Jeff's question there, if you guys do run into a brick wall with the beds on this program, is there any way Manitoba goes it alone or no?
Well, I don't think we're going to have to go it alone. There's lots of good models that we can use. I think that the Prime Minister's already suggested he's open to dialogue. He wouldn't have said that if it was a no. I mean, you all know examples. I've asked them to come in and help us in terms of coordinating borrowing so they could save us money, and the Prime Minister said no. But they did do some helpful things to get to get some rates down using the Bank of Canada. So he's listening, and this isn't a criticism of the Prime Minister. I'd just say I think there's an opportunity here for federal leadership on this thing because to make it work, it has to be national. Can't just have one province that's doing this. I think it's best if the whole country does it. Because our economy, we're in a family, and our economy depends on all the provinces' economies recovering, not just ours. So it's very important that we have, we could use the unemployment fund. The employment insurance program is designed to be flexible and adaptable, could be used, but there are any number of other models. So we'll continue to advocate for a COVID recovery and against a COVID comeback. Just want to say thanks again to everybody and appreciate Manitobans doing the right things. Keep doing them. As we get into the summer, there will be a tendency for all of us to start to take things for granted. And we've got to be very careful that we don't let our progress to date be put at risk by forgetting how important the fundamentals are. Those fundamentals that we followed of social distancing and hand washing, making sure that we stay home when we're sick, don't go to work, respecting that distancing for when we're around people, especially people, higher risk people, seniors and so on, is really, really important. And this is what's got us the progress that Manitobans deserve to be proud of. But we can't forget about that going forward. We can't take this lightly. COVID is sneaky, it's nefarious, and it's a high-risk thing. So let's remember that as we move forward, as we do the right things, as we gradually and safely reopen our economy and our province to the social interactions that we value now more perhaps than we have in the past ever. Make sure that we do the right thing, keep doing the right thing, and together we can beat this thing. Thanks, everybody.